Anna?
Yes. You can start.
Welcome to Executive Execution. Today we're talking about driving action. I'm Daniel Mueller with Solid Leaders, and we have a host of people as panelists to have a lively discussion on actually not driving action, driving results. Today is about driving results. What's the difference between driving action, which is what we talked about last time, and driving results, which is today's topic? Anyone?
Being
Driving
quantifiable.
action. What's that?
Being quantifiable.
Being quantifiable. Good. What else?
Within their scope of control.
Within your scope of control. Good. What else?
Connects to the company's priorities and goals and objectives.
Yeah, it has to connect with the company's goals, priorities, and objectives. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Everyone should be able to see this slideshow. As a quick review, 5 categories of competency. We are focusing on execution. Here we are today, April the 9th, at driving results. And I really think this is the most important of the 10 execution competencies. Driving results. 4 key topics today: increasing intensity towards driving results. How do we do that? Developing strategies to better hit our numbers, driving your own performance, and then increasing standards for personal achievement. And as I write the next revision of this ebook, I'm really going to add something about driving the results through others, because that's, I think, a critical component of this as well. Okay, number 1, increasing intensity towards driving results. Why will master driving results allow you to rapidly advance your career? That's my opening premise of this chapter. It will allow you to rapidly advance your career. Why, if you're masterful at driving results, will this happen? What do you think?
You would build a reputation about, getting shit done, for lack of a better explanation, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better than that, Luis. Absolutely. Why else? Why will mastering this, truly mastering driving results, be a causal agent in you rapidly advancing your career? Why do you think?
I'd say without results, the rest is just fluff. You can have all the action that you could possibly drive, but if it doesn't end up in meaningful results that are measurable, then what's the purpose?
Absolutely. I mean, if we're talking about what is the mark of a top executive, we talked about 5 categories of competency, that you have to be good at all 5. Now, we also talked about early on core character, how it's the most important category for a true top executive, but it's the least measured. So we don't see this and we don't measure this for the vast majority of the time. So you don't get promoted because you're a great guy. There's lots of good people out there, lots of good people, but very few good people make it to the executive rank and file unless they produce results, right? Otherwise, you'd have a lot of wonderful, wonderful human beings that don't get any results collecting a paycheck. And maybe you think that really describes some of your executive peers. But at the end of the day, it's about getting results. So you can have great relationship skills and get along well with others and be able to be a good manager and a good leader. But if you don't get results, you don't stay in that world. That's the premise. Okay, who remembers John's story? And Anna, would you share your screen, please? and pull up John's story. Who remembers John's story? John was my best friend, by the way. It's a true story. All these stories in here are true. John was a good friend of mine, passed away a couple of years ago. Never witnessed John get angry until he came to work for me in 2012. He was an executive coach, and then he became CEO of my company. Anna, did you stop sharing your screen? Okay. Scroll down if you would. What was the moral of this story? Does anyone remember?
It wasn't about not having entrepreneurial spirit. It's kind of he worked well in a large organization, but not a small organization, and couldn't adapt to it.
Yep, could not adapt. Was not able to adapt to a startup environment. So the moral of this story, just because you can produce results in one environment doesn't mean you can produce results in another environment. And every executive has a sweet spot. So each one of you, if we could measure your sweet spot, and we could measure it by one of the sweet spots, size of company. Some of you do really good in, say, $0 to $5 million companies, some 5 to 50, some 50 to 100, some 100 to 500, some 500 to $1 billion, some $1 billion to 10 billion. But size of company really matters.
Yeah.
And those that are really good at thriving in a complex, global, matrixed corporation oftentimes fail miserably in small startup environments, and vice versa. Right? Okay,
Yeah.
you can stop sharing your screen, Anna. Thank you. So, why does success depend upon the environment? Tell me that. Why does your success depend on the environment that you're in?
It's mainly because the environment has a huge impact on how you're going to progress and drive results and drive action, right? If it's an environment that is thriving for growth and while making sure that the entire workforce and the culture is intact, then you're going to thrive in that environment and become a really great leader, versus if you live in a toxic environment that is, although focused on driving action and results, but if the culture is not great, then you're going to churn out of that very quickly.
Okay, good. That's one reason. Give me another reason. And I don't have the right answer. We're just brainstorming a list of why does success depend on the environment?
Well, I think you're either in that spot where you've got your mojo flowing and you're able to be the best that you can be, or you're in a spot where you're uncomfortable and you've got anxieties about different things, whether it's relationships or financials or whatever. It takes different experiences to create that in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
But to thrive there, you've got to be in the right spot.
Right. Richard is on this call. Richard, you are thriving in this entrepreneurial environment.
Yeah, on a personal level, yeah, this is, I honestly feel like, hey, I was born to do this. And I say that a lot, and I don't mean it euphemistically. I mean, I just, I did not do well in a large company setting, but I've done reasonably well at taking this company from, measured in the hundreds of thousands up to the millions of dollars. And, now we're getting to have more of those big company kinds of trappings and things like that. But what I've learned from a comfort standpoint is that comfort breeds confidence, is that I have some employees that were once in really large companies and they've had to dial it back because you have a different skill set in a small company. You may be functional, you may be leadership, and you may be held accountable from a P&L perspective for certain lines of business. Some people just aren't built that way, and other people thrive on that sort of thing. And so the comfort breeds confidence, confidence breeds results. And that, at least that's been in my experience over the last, 5 years.
That's good. That's really good. Insightful. Richard, You have had numbers of entrepreneurial startup ventures that have been successful, that have got you to this latest one. I predict that this will continue to be in your sweet spot until you get to like 10 million in revenue.
That's probably, once it gets bigger than I can directly see and grasp what folks are doing, that's probably when I'm going to start to struggle. And that's when I'll likely have to step back and say, look, there are people that are way better at this than me. Here, I'll go manage product or this or that, or I'll just go start something new. I mean, this is my fifth. Actually, now I'm on my sixth one because we just did an acquisition. So I'm on my sixth company at this point.
And Roger, you're the opposite, right? You really thrive in that complex global environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've had leaders that report to me that I like to use the analogy of the square peg in a round hole. Great people, great core character, greater relationships, just not able to deliver results. And when the results are of the magnitude that they are at my company, I mean, they're important everywhere, but there isn't a whole lot of second chances, I guess, is a fair way to look at it. You've got to deliver, and you've got to deliver from day one. Not to say that, our leadership team and myself included, we don't take the time to coach people and develop them and bring them along. There's just a point where, to your point, if you haven't mastered most of the things that are going to get results, it's time to step back and say, maybe this environment isn't right for this particular individual, and it's time to move on.
That's right. Another sweet spot is also level. So like for you, Roger, I really think you're going to thrive in the next level up for you. That next level promotion, you're going to see it as your total sweet spot. You're doing very, very good here, but that next level up is going to be even easier for you. Whereas some of you might be over your skis, where you're actually been Peter principled to that level of highest incompetency. And so you need to be careful. There is no shame in taking a step back. There's no shame in saying, I've been promoted to this level, but I really need to take one level back because of the complexity of the level. So everyone has a sweet spot. And I think it's important to know what your sweet spot is in terms of level, of individual contributor, level 1, level 2, manager, level 3, a manager of managers, second line management, which is a manager of managers who manage managers, third line management, usually VP, managing managers who manage managers who manage managers, etc. So just knowing where your sweet spot is in those areas. Let me ask you a question. What are your environmental factors you need to be successfully driving results? What environmental factors do you need? Just jot that down to yourself. What environmental factors do you need to successfully drive results? Richard had something to say about confidence, that your competence in a role gives you confidence. Your confidence in a role helps you to drive success. Richard, would you repeat what you said, because it was really catchy?
Sure. I mean, from my standpoint, and this is just, and this again, in my little world where I've got a small software company, and that software company has a lot of different customer types. And so what I found is that the skills are not as interchangeable as we might think. Some people's skill sets are interchangeable in some environments, but what I've often found is that If the person isn't comfortable either with the data, with the type of customer, or with the type of content, if they're not comfortable, then they're not going to have confidence. If they don't have confidence, they're going to second guess themselves, and they're going to doubt, and they're going to need a lot of hand holding in order to establish that confidence. And not everybody needs to be type A. This isn't a type A kind of a situation where they need to be a hard charging individual. You can't have a whole business predicated on those types of people. You'll collapse pretty quick. But you need to have individual personal confidence or comfort in order to have the confidence that I have the tools, talent, technique in order to do the job that I'm being asked to do. And that comfort breeds that confidence, which then breeds the results, because they can say, I got this.
And being able to say, I've got this. Yes. Good point. Let's look at how do you increase your intensity according to behavioral style. So what Richard was saying is it's not necessarily according to behavioral style. Each of the behavioral styles is valid, and they can increase intensity according to their style. So let me let you look at this. Let's drive to the end of this. You'll get this deck at the end of today. So there's the 4 behavioral styles. Let's talk about the D, then we'll go I, S, and C. So the D, control-oriented, results-producing, decisive, impatient, powerful. The drivers are moving fast, getting results. How does this style increase intensity toward achieving results? How do you think?
So the D is dominant, right? It's all about massive action. And when you look at a personality that's mostly D, most of the C-level executives, they're all about drive massive scale action, drive results. So for them, the intensity is majority of the time focused on just moving forward as fast as possible, as quickly as possible. Whereas if you look at some of the other criteria of the model, sometimes you have to have a balance between your driver and your influencer. Because you need to make sure you influence the entire organization. Versus if you just focus primarily on D, then at some cases I've seen some of my clients that they lose focus.
Sure, it results for the sake of results, and having dead bodies in your wake, it's a short-lived journey, right? So this style needs to be careful, because this style is the one that is most results oriented. And in fact, if you have this behavioral style as your style, you don't have to really work on producing results. This is a natural byproduct of this style. This is the natural thing that this style does. That's why we see more of this style than any other style in the executive rank and file, because it is so results producing. However, we need to be careful, because there is other styles that are equally valid. So going back to this question, how do you increase your intensity according to behavioral style? Let's look at the I style. If you're an I behavioral style, how do you increase your intensity? What do you think? Key drivers of this style are being positive, having fun. What would you coach this person to do if they said, I want to increase my intensity towards driving results?
Set metrics.
It's
and
the opposite, right?
Say that again, set metrics. Go ahead, keep going.
I'd probably have them lead meetings, present possibly some of the data that the team had discovered, or some of the analysis that had been done. I'd make them the mouthpiece.
Sure. This style is a naturally good mouthpiece. They love being upfront. They're naturally good at being upfront. They're you can see by the description, people-oriented, enthusiastic, persuasive, talkative, spontaneous. Where's their Achilles heel, do you think? Where do they struggle?
Knowing when to stop.
Number one. Number two?
Listening.
Number 3,
Results.
I would say it's the metrics.
Yeah.
It's the metrics. They produce results, but they have to be metrics oriented. And you know what's interesting is when you look across this diagram, you can see the opposite style. So the opposite style, this C, and this C is all about the numbers, analysis, accuracy, metrics, right? This is your most metrics-driven style. And this style loses respect for this style, the I style, when the I style is not metrics-driven.
Absolutely.
So it's really key for if you're this behavioral style, the analysis-oriented, accurate, contemplative, reserved, deliberate style, your key driver is being accurate, maintaining quality. How do you increase intensity of this style toward achieving results? What do you think?
Set deadlines.
Yeah, paralysis of analysis is one of the biggest issues with this style. So having a deadline and having to hit that deadline, that's brilliant. Good, what else?
Having clear goals.
Clear goals, and in writing, this person wants written goals.
Yeah, here's a list. Go work on these. Here's the expectations of that list, the deliverables.
And prioritized. Now, what about this style over here? Relationship-oriented, dependable, supportive, overly patient, cooperative. Their key driver, nurturing relationships, helping others. If you want to get more results out of this style, what do you do?
I think they also need deadlines. You know, they need to have something to focus on, you know, instead of spending too much time building relationships.
Yes, and
it's okay to build relationships, but you still need to have a goal.
Yes, and this style, more than any other style, tends to avoid conflict. So they don't like making people feel uncomfortable. Therefore, they're not wanting to push people out of their comfort zone. So that's really important for this style. Good, Susan. What else? What else would you do with this style if you had to get more results out of them? You have to light the fire. What do you do?
You need to follow up with them, right?
Yeah, this style, more than any other style, does well with accountability. So does the I behavioral style. That both of these styles are more people-oriented. So, in fact, if you have a high I secondary S or high S secondary I behavioral style employee, they're going to be very open and very relational. And this combination is not as task-oriented. So you don't have to worry with a style that has the D secondary C, the C secondary D, because that style tends to be very task-oriented, results-oriented, achievement-oriented. Okay, good. All right, let's go on. I'm going to go back. Let me see. I'm trying to get my screen to share this again. There we go. 1 second, sorry. Can you see my screen? Can you see the current slide?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so back to increasing intensity. We understood the 4 behavioral styles. Next question, developing strategies to better hit numbers. Why do you need numbers to be metrics or to be metric oriented as an executive?
Has to be quantifiable.
Say that again?
Everything needs to be quantifiable.
Why?
Otherwise, it's just a gut feeling relative, right?
Is it fair to say that metrics orientation will separate A players from B and C players as executives?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Everyone agrees there.
Yep, the numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. Why does everyone need to get better at this? No matter how good you are at metrics, why do you in your chair right now need to get better at this? Why do you think?
It's the most effective way of communicating the results that you or your team have produced.
Good. It's very, very important to be able to communicate out the results you're producing. Mitchell, why do you think?
Yeah, so I think that a couple of things. One, it helps you track progress along the way, to know how you're progressing toward your goals and objectives. Also to know whether you know, from a reporting mechanism, if you hit them or not. And then when you're building a narrative internally to other parts of the organization for support of expansion or something you need, or just value to the overall business, it's the best evidence or indicator of the value you're driving if you can show the metrics and the results that you produced.
Yep. Very, very true. Strongly agree with that. Luis, what about you? Why do you think this is critical?
Yeah, I would agree with what everyone else had said. You know, it just measures the overall success of whatever you were trying to achieve or accomplish, and you know, whether it was an app that you developed, are people using that application or that feature that you released? And if you have those numbers that are showing, hey, success was 40% of our users would use this feature, and you can see that you hit that number and more. It just proves the success behind your plan.
Sure, absolutely. Why do you think this is more important than ever? Why do you think metrics today, like Thursday, why is this more important than ever?
Well, if you've got to relook at the strategic planning for your organization, you're going to have to use the metrics to decide which way to go.
Yep. Good. What else?
The uncertainty creates.
In the environment of the, go ahead.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in the environment we find ourselves, if you're talking about today, in the midst of coronavirus, I know we're doing a lot of modeling of potential scenarios that might play out over the next several months to understand what could happen, so that those can inform the decisions we're making today to be able to handle that.
Yeah, very much so. Anyone else? Good. So let me ask you, how does this relate to behavioral styles? How does metrics orientation relate to behavioral styles? What do you think?
Well, I think it's going to be more in the D, right? The further you are in the D, probably the stronger your metrics are.
Right. So if that's the case, but we can't always, we can't all be D behavioral styles. What do? The question is, how do you drive your own performance? No matter what behavioral style you are. What do you do to drive your performance? What are some tips, some tricks?
Well, that's what I think in your text, it was the constant and never-ending improvement, right?
Yeah, CANI. Yeah, tell me about that. What's CANI? CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. But give me some tips and tricks. That's what it is, sure, embracing constant, never-ending improvement. But how do you drive your own performance? What do you do personally to make yourself perform better than you normally would?
Well, in the second session, we talked about journaling and making time on your schedule to constantly check what your performance is and where you're at relative to your goals.
Okay. Good. So let's brainstorm a list. And Anna, would you keep this list, please? All right. So let's capture that. Journaling, What else?
So for me, right, I like to go back to my goals, like the SMART goals or smarter goals. What did I set for myself, and have those goals been achieved? If
Good.
not achieved, then I need to work harder, before I set another goal, because it's okay to increase performance, but if a goal has not been achieved, then it's really a waste of time. So look at these goals that have been set, have you achieved those? If not, maybe you need to rethink, and replan.
Good. And we talked about smarter, the
Yeah.
ER of smarter,
Yeah, smarter.
evidence, which is metrics, right? Having evidence of achieving the goal, and then R, reviewing the goal. So smarter goals. Richard, what do you do? What are the tips and tricks that you use to push yourself harder than you normally would, or to achieve more than you normally would?
Well, from my perspective, it's about talking to folks in the organization and talking to my customers. More than anything else, that feedback tells me, am I doing well? What can I improve on? And there are certain areas that are focus areas. So for example, if I know things are going well in X part of the world, then that means I know I can focus in a little bit on the Y part of the world, and I can dive into that, look at that, help internalize what the issues are, set goals around those issues, because maybe I didn't know that something was there. It's one thing from an executive perspective to say, okay, I've got a very specific set of goals. The issue that I find is that it's the things that I don't know are the things that come and get me, especially as being a company owner. And so by having lots of conversations with my customers, with my employees, and understanding what are the pain points, either it's a resource issue, technology issue, or a talent issue, what are the things that I can challenge myself as a leader and an owner in order to make sure that other people can be successful?
Well said. So, Anna, capture that, having conversations, asking questions, identifying the pain points, solving the issues, right? Mitchell, what about you? Tips and tricks. Give us something that is a technique to push yourself harder than you normally would push yourself.
Yeah, so for me, it starts with understanding what my natural proclivities are within my style. I'm a CS, and so I like to go into data analysis. And so ensuring that I'm not allowing myself to spend too much time there, understanding where I need to spend my time, and then some of those things that will drive me to action, like setting objectives, deadlines, metrics around those goals and actions.
That's great. So understanding your behavioral style and adapting your style to produce better results. Good. Luis, what about you? Tip or trick? How do you push yourself to achieve more results?
Yeah, and I would kind of agree with Aaron and kind of circle back to, making the time, carving that time, manage your calendar, right, at this level, and making sure you block time to plan accordingly, especially when you're managing managers based off of metrics, hold yourself accountable to your own metrics as well.
Okay, good. So hold yourself to your own to metrics accountable, and then hold others accountable to metrics. Good. Oren, what about you? Tips or tricks?
The being introspective, which is part of the journaling, right? It's the really looking at yourself and are you in the sweet spot? If you're not, what's your correction on that? Doing it on a regular basis. And I'm super guilty of not making the time for the journaling and the reflection and scheduling it.
Yeah.
Just because you get so busy.
Yep. I'm a victim of that this morning. Yep. Roger, what about you?
Yeah, one thing that I like to do, but admittedly don't do often enough, would be sort of like an after action review type of thing. So we just closed out the first quarter at the end of March, and I have yet to schedule time with my leadership team to say, let's talk about the first quarter. What went well? What can we do better in Q2? What's on the table for this quarter? And, what did we learn that will apply moving forward so that we do even better?
That's good. That's
Roger,
great.
there's something you said in there that really made me think about organizational KPIs and questioning whether or not every one that you've been using along the way is still valid, or is it creating extra work? You know, they need to be dynamic.
That's good. Samir, what about you?
I think I reflect back to what everyone's saying, and I just want to, I think that in order for you to have a constant and never-ending improvement, what I believe truly is in benchmarking the performance against the performance of not only just yours, but also the performance of the other industry leaders. So one thing you could do is like you can do a lot of journalism and keep a good status quo of what's happening in your life, but I think reflecting back to others, and someone that you admire, someone that you think is a mentor, and looking at some of their KPIs and their performance indicators and see how I can benchmark against them if I were to consistently improve myself.
That's good. Susan, what about you? What do you do? What do you do to push yourself to produce greater results?
It's something I do every day. You know, I just look at what I planned to do and what I need to do to get there. So for me, I go back and rethink and redo. You know, I spend a lot of time, early hours of the day, to plan my day. So if I don't wake up and get up, then something is wrong. So I need to look at what I did the previous day and what I need to fix. So I don't struggle with pushing myself because I'm always on the go. So I'm more of a D type of person, type A.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are here. So for me, what I do is I put stuff on the calendar, or rather my staff put it on the calendar for me. So I just calendar everything. And so I'm just in such an incredible habit of following the calendar that I'll even do those tough things that I don't want to do as long as it's on the calendar. So I use my calendar as a heavy, heavy duty diary. And so I'll calendar something to do. Everything I have to do gets time blocked on the calendar. And so, because I work 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, but that's it. I don't work more than that. So everything goes on the calendar. So if it's not on the calendar, for me, it doesn't get done. So that's my tip. Time block.
In addition to the calendar, really, because the calendar is just an item that you plug in there. You know, using a notebook is something I have used over the years. I make a lot of notes. You know, if I have an action item, I have this conference today, I go back and make notes of what I learned from that conference, and I can go back and review it. So calendar in addition to notes. So I journal a lot also.
Yes, I agree with that. And I use my my calendar for my notes too. So it's also a diary for me. I agree with you. Okay, so why are most executives rarely satisfied with their performance? You know, over the years, I've had the privilege of coaching about 1,500 of you guys, you men and women. And what I have found is that there's a little, I call it the ever-ready bunny, that beats inside of all of you. And it's always boom, 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 more and more, better, better, more and more, better, better. Why is that? Why are most executives rarely satisfied with their performance? Why do you think?
Well, they have the innate canny, right?
It's innate, yes. It's just built into your DNA. Now, here's something important. If you don't have that inside of you, you need to somehow manufacture it. So I know most of you on this call have that inside of them. But the question is, does everyone have that inside? And if you don't, how are you going to get it? Or this question, next question, how can you emulate success?
So
what can you do? Well, what can you do for one of your people? So let me just ask this. If you have a person on your staff that doesn't have it, that doesn't have that CANI, constant and never-ending improvement in their DNA, what do you do with them?
I think you expose them to a mentor or a lead that does have that and make it safe for them to explore it.
Okay, good. So expose them, get them mentored, create a safe environment that they can explore that. Maybe you mentioned them yourselves. What else?
Well, it really depends on
Accountability,
the role. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Richard.
Well, from my standpoint, it really comes down to the role. I mean, if I've got somebody that's working a customer support desk, the ones that have innate desire and drive, I'm going to feed that. But I still have to have somebody that's going to keep the lights on and is going to be steady and in control of their small domain. So it really comes down to what level of person in the organization that we're talking to, what is the role that we expect of them, what results do we expect of them, and at the end of the day, those folks that have it being the innate drive, they're the ones that we're going to mentor, bring along, give additional opportunities to. The folks that don't, as long as they're meeting their performance and keeping up with the incremental performance that they're given, then they're largely okay depending on the role.
Okay, good. Interesting. So not everyone is going to have Kanai. Not everyone is going to be embracing this constant and never-ending improvement. And we need all different kinds. However, I would add to that to say, let's help these people by holding them accountable to metrics. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Number 4, increasing standards for personal achievement. What does Kanai stand for? Pop quiz. Luis.
Oh man, I know you're gonna call on me. I had it at the tip of my tongue and I lost it.
That's okay. Constant and never-ending what?
Improvement. There you go.
Why is it the rallying cry for most top executives? Mitchell, why? Why do you think it's the rallying cry for most top executives?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the last point about why are executives never fully satisfied with their own performance. I think that we naturally are not always completely satisfied with the performance of our team, which is a reflection of us, right? And so
Sure.
because of that innate drive, we're always trying to improve, look for places to improve, strategies, tactics to improve our performance and the performance of our team.
So it's normal and natural to have that inside of you, and it's normal and natural for you to try to create that inside of others. So it's a good thing to do. How do you raise the bar for yourself? In other words, in your chair right now, I want you to raise the bar. What does that look like for each of you? What does raising the bar look like?
I think it's kind of like, Monday night quarterback yourself, so like, what did you achieve this week, this quarter, and similar to what someone else mentioned about going through your learning lessons of what you accomplished.
Right, good. Monday night quarterback yourself. What else? We're just brainstorming a list of a couple of things to do. Take notes if you want.
I talk about giving one additional % every day. And if you've ever seen the graph where as you give 1 additional % a day over the course of a year, you raise that to the end of 365, you get this hockey stick, of results, time, versus results. Whereas if you give 1% less, you'll decline and you'll approach 0. You never reach 0, but it's amazing just how flat the performance becomes. So it's just, if you just can give 1% more every day, it'll add up quickly.
So I'd like this to have been a meaningful hour that we've spent together. Let's all dig down despite this environment that we're in, and let's push against it and give 1% more every day. And we wake up and say, we're going to do our best today. And we're going to do a little bit better than we did yesterday. Yes?
Yes.
What are the actions to further raise the bar for yourself? That's homework. Think about that for next time. Let me ask this question. Why does driving results matter? And here's some questions to ponder. Why is action without intentional results deemed useless by many executives? Another question, why do we say that this is one of the primary executive skills? Third question, how does this skill translate into management of your team? And then I opened today with this statement that this section doesn't deal enough, in my opinion, I'm being critical of my own writing, with the management of your team. So driving results is important, but it's more than just driving your own personal results. You have to be a driver of the results of your team today more than ever. So how can you do a better job of being a better role model? So how can we be a better role model for our team? What do you think? This is our last question of the day. What can we do to be a better role model for our team?
I think it's important to be visible. Whenever you ask a question or you demand performance of some sort or action, that
Be visible.
you've got an example of how you once done it.
Good. So be visible, set an example. What else? Just brainstorming a list. Samir.
Influence your team to continuously improve themselves as well. And kind of one of the things that I challenge people is maintaining the balance between what do you call it, the performance-oriented achievement versus your health and behavioral-oriented achievement. And you have a combination of both of those, then you become a perfect 360 model for others. A lot of executives, they press really hard in improving just the performance quotient, and that impacts significant impact on their health. And that eventually it erodes their performance. So the health quotient, the health component, and the mindset and the positivity and the constant achievement needs to go simultaneously with the health component.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's just not all about the work, right? It's about the whole person. It's a holistic approach. We've got to care about the whole person, not just the worker. Yes, good. Roger, what do you think?
So other than being visible and providing examples of what you expect from your team?
Yes, beyond visibility. In this environment, how do we role model? Because I think you're an awesome role model for your people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What do we do? What can we do right now in this environment, in the condition we are in the world right now?
Well, let me jump in on this one just a bit. So for me, it's really trustworthiness, because right now there's a lot of people that don't have perfect information. And so they're casting about.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say what you do what you say, and you prove it, and you exhibit a level of trustworthiness, then they'll trust that even if bad things are going to happen, and trust me guys, bad things are going to happen, but at least they can understand that, hey, look, these things are being dealt with in a serious manner. This is what we say we're going to do. These are the variables and the X factors that we can't control. And you're honest and upfront about that. And at least for my folks, I mean, and this is in 2 countries or 3 countries that we're working with folks right now, and having that ability to exhibit trustworthiness and be able to say what you do and prove a result at the end of it, that's been deeply comforting for a lot of folks.
Yeah, I would layer on top of that transparency.
Yeah.
Transparency.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So be visible, establish trust, be trustworthy, be transparent, and lead through this by example. Yes?
And another thing I can add to that is getting to know your team, because, like it has been said, it's not just about work, right? Sometimes, people get to the office, they may have a lot of things going on, back end. I believe the home front can affect the work also. So getting to know your team, not necessarily on a deep personal level, but have conversation with them that is not work related. That helps also, and also build trust. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Susan, words of wisdom. And I really believe that you're absolutely right to really listen to the fears and the concerns and the issues that our team has, and make it a safe place for them to vent, especially during this time. Well, guys,
yes,
excellent.
I make it a point. Yes.
What's that?
I make it a point. I meet with my team once every 2 weeks, just to talk about everything outside of work. because doing so can, I can assess what's going on and see where I can help.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very good, everyone. Excellent, excellent meeting. Let me just bring up my screen real quick, and I am going to go back to the beginning. Next time we are on E4, focusing attention. So we'll see you again next Thursday, 2 p.m. Central Time, or 2:05 is our start time. We end at 2:55, and focusing attention. Great discussion, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good work.